Hello, 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 everyone. Hello. Good evening. Good evening. Hi, Miss Anne. How are you? Hello. Come on in, beautiful people. Come on in. Hi, Melanie, Shanae, Jenny, Cookie. Come on in, guys. Come on in. Guys, this evening. Hi.
Hello. How you
Hi,
doing?
I'm good. How are
I'm
you?
good. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Let me
I can
actually put
hear
this on.
you good.
All right, great.
Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Hi, everyone. Hi,
everybody.
everyone. Come on in, share this live. I don't know what it's going to be today. You know
You
when
know,
Andrea's on.
we never know what we're gonna get.
You don't know what to expect, but
We don't.
I'm honored that we're doing this again. For those of you that don't know, Andrea is a mental health professional. She went out into the world and learned how to help people kind of navigate, cope, and to teach them coping mechanisms. I'll let you tell her what it is that she does exactly, but I met her through my fitness community, and I'm just drawn to her because she has this way of making you feel safe, making you feel heard, and helping you really digest things in a really tender, calm way, and finding your way towards healing and therapy. If you missed the first part of this series that I did back for Women's History Month, I'm gonna hold on one second. I'm not sure. Someone else is trying to join my live. I don't know what that's about. But somebody else was trying to join. That's so weird. Sorry, guys.
All right. Hopefully, we're back at it.
Turn my Wi-Fi off. Um, am I back?
Yeah. Am I?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
We
You
lost
never
you
know
for a
what's
quick
gonna
second.
happen.
I know. We lost you for a quick second, and then someone else was trying to join, and I'm like, what's happening? Who's the
Oh
second
wow.
person? I don't know.
Out here in
But
these
share this live,
Instagram
guys.
streets.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm not in the streets. I'm just here.
Oh, listen.
um,
Protect the
share
space.
this live, share this live, share this live. It's going to be a really good one because today we're going to do something a little bit different. Today we are going to allow you guys to ask questions. So there's a little question box there where you guys can ask us questions, and Andrea and I will discuss them and kind of give you feedback. As I mentioned before, she is a mental health professional, but I'll let you, the amazing Andrea, introduce you what her specific credentials are and what she does and why she chose this path so that we can kind of get into it. Because I'm kind of like, let's dig into the meat early.
Right. Let's jump right in.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dion. It's always a pleasure, and I am grateful for part two. We had a great conversation several weeks back. I don't even know if we're at a month or so, or maybe more. And it was juicy and exciting. And so I'm so happy to be here with you, for part two. So everybody, thanks so much for being here with us. If you haven't already met me, if this is the first time, my name is Andrea, and I am the founder of Intentional Healing and Wellness. We got the backdrop music of the great borough of Brooklyn. So forgive the sirens and all that's happening.
This is life. I'm in
This is life.
Brooklyn,
Yeah.
and I'm in Brooklyn. I'm in Bridgeport, Connecticut. So the same thing's gonna happen. I live close to the fire department, so same thing might happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the
It's
we live in urban places. So
exactly. It's that city life. And I'm sitting by the window, so it's a little bit louder than usual. Um, But yeah, so I'm the founder of Intentional Healing and Wellness. Some of you may already know me, but Intentional Healing and Wellness is a business that I created during the pandemic, May of 2020. So prior to that, I was a school psychologist for the New York City Department of Education. for 14 years. Cue in the horns. 14 years.
That means you're speaking the truth.
Exactly, right? And I'm curious, I'm in Brooklyn, and Dion, you're in Connecticut,
Yeah.
right? And where's everybody else? Drop it in the chat so we can see where you're, where you're joining us from. But yeah, it was 14 years as a school psychologist. And when I got introduced to coaching about 6 years ago, it took a piece of my heart. It was just epic, because up until that point, all of my work was very much about looking back for answers. So counseling and therapy is very much about looking to the past to identify why you might be feeling some way, what occurred that potentially has created, where you are now, and all of the things. So a lot of looking back. When I got introduced to coaching, it was the first time that I was introduced to looking at where you are currently and thinking about where you want to go, and using questions in a very inquisitive and strategic fashion to support the journey forward. And so when I get introduced to that 6 years ago, it was like, whoa, like I got stopped dead in my tracks, because what I found up until that point for myself was that I was committed to my healing journey, and I was surely looking back. But I was looking back.
I mean, I think a lot of people do that. I mean, I do that even now. I'm like, I got to fix this thing that happened back there in order for me to go forward, because they, everyone's talking about trauma, and people are dropping in the chats where they're from. So thank you guys for sharing that. What do we have? I know my friend is on here, Sarah. Sarah, how are you? She is here in Connecticut with me, but a little bit further up, we have Ohio, we have Westchester, New York, Inglewood, Suffolk, and I know someone is on from in the Boston area. But so speak on that a little bit more, because I think that's what most people think, is that they need to always go back to retrieve something so that they can move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to actually describe the difference between coaching, consulting, and counseling, because oftentimes those three things get used interchangeably, and there's a lot of confusion around it. So counseling, also known as therapy, is very much about looking back. It's looking at childhood, it's looking at past experiences, it's exploring why things could be occurring the way they're occurring now. Okay. And so that's counseling. And then consulting is about providing suggestion. So it's about me saying, hey, Dion, you may want to try X, Y, and Z, because it comes from an area of expertise. So let's say in the realm of mental health, I could be providing suggestion. That's consulting, where you're offering out, information, things to try on. And coaching is about where you are, where you're looking to go, and it's using the power of questions to support the discovery process.
Okay.
Now,
so you don't make recommendations in that third one?
Not black and white. It's not like a no. Traditionally, you don't. However, if someone's using, like, my work is very much a hybrid model, because I have the therapeutic training. I have 14 years experience of consulting work, and coaching is, the last 6 years of using questions. So I sort of switch on and off hats, because of the three different modalities that's infused, which is why I feel like my work tends to have like an accelerated healing process, because if something comes up from the past, and I was just going to say this to you, oftentimes during the coaching process, the past will come up, because if you're looking at, let's just say, patterns of procrastination, you can't help but look to where has it occurred. And so naturally the past, comes up. Generally speaking, good evening, everybody. Welcome in. Generally speaking, when the past comes up, if there's any sort of trauma, any sort of emotional difficulty, if you will, technically coaches are supposed to refer out, to a counselor, to a therapist. The nice part about my work again is that I don't have to refer out
Yeah.
because it's
You're
within my
trained.
wheelhouse, yeah, to be able to stay with you in whatever it is that comes up. But that's the primary difference that I feel like for folks who are with us tonight, it's helpful to know what the focus is so that you also know what you prefer in terms of the work, right?
Yeah.
Some people really want to explore the past. There's a lot of people who haven't said out loud some things that they've gone through. And so there's total power in being able to be in a therapeutic relationship to stay exploring those experiences. And then there are some folks, you know, and I identify with this totally, where I'm like, yes, and right, like,
I
yes, all
don't.
that. And I want to
I
look
don't want to dig it
forward.
up, but you know, my thing with that is not knowing and processing it, and then when you least expect it, it just bombards you.
Yeah.
So that's my always my fear is if I don't go back and resolve things. You don't really know though what you need to resolve until it comes up. So
Yeah.
my thing about that is always I don't want to be. It's like you're struck by lightning. If I could, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
um,
It's that trigger, right? It gets activated, which is so powerful because
yeah,
that's when unexpected, when it happens, we have the ability to recognize, well, you know, one of my mentors used to say, people could only press that button if you have the button for it to be pressed.
yeah,
And so when something comes up, it's information, it's powerful to be able to identify, ooh, here's some work to be done.
yeah,
There's something here.
yeah.
Yeah.
So guys, those of you that are on, I don't know if you noticed when I posted the banner, I mentioned that this is going to be a Q&A. So the great thing about this session is that you can ask Andrea, you know, you're going through something, you can ask Andrea, we can have a conversation. Let's have a dialogue about you know, facing kind of like and healing, facing your fears and healing wise, you know, kind of like going through this process in a sensible way. If there are any, you know, questions or any topics that you guys want to bring up, we should really, you know, now's the time to put that in there and let's
Yeah.
get the expert to support and help us. Um,
Yeah,
and
totally. Drop in whatever is coming up. And even if it's a topic that's of interest to you, this is fun. It feels like hot seat, right? Because there's no preparation for it. And
I
so
know.
whatever comes up,
I don't
whatever.
do great with like that plan thing though.
Yeah.
Andrea's always like, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, you know what, honestly, let's just go on. Let's talk about it. Let's tell people that it's okay. Um, create a forum where people feel comfortable having the conversation. Um, and, and so we're never scripted, but we always
Yeah,
move into a place of where people need to go.
totally.
And Tenacious Angels, who's one of my sisters from Girl Hold My Hand, says no more traditional. She said no more traditional therapy. We need to nurture each other in our expertise. That's great. Yeah. So
Yeah.
how do
Yeah.
you assist a client through suicide? Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a question that leads to lots of other questions, right? So my next question would be, are you asking about someone who has ideation? Are you asking about someone who has made an attempt or is, you know, has several attempts? Because depending upon what the person is going through depends upon the level of support and the action plan. You know, and so I guess first and foremost, to keep it more general so that it kind of could resonate for folks, there's an assessment. You know, there's a risk assessment that I conduct to basically identify, is there currently a plan? Is there, has there been attempts? You know, if so, when was the last attempt? Is it more thoughts of, you know, so there's lots of questions to gain a sense of, is there a plan? Like a very concrete, you know, I'm thinking about doing X, Y, and Z. And based upon answers to lots of those questions, I would then either, you know, have the person go, like, call 911. You know, if there's imminent danger and I'm concerned that if this person leaves me, I'm not sure and I don't feel comfortable that this person is safe, then I would, you know, work with them to get immediate support. If it's not so much of an urgent matter, but it's more of a conversational where it's set, where folks share, that this has come up, then it is about resources. It's about coming up with a plan, you know, so that if these thoughts occur, what is their plan that they can take to reach for support, to have, you know, resources handy. I always give folks, anyone who shares with me that they've ever had any sort of ideation, I do give the suicide hotline telephone number.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's an important number to have in the
I
telephone.
have it in my, because years back I considered, you know, it's like you're going through that emotional distress.
Yeah.
And you get to the point where you're like, okay, this is just this, I really don't want to be here anymore. And I actually, I don't know if I was going to go through with it. I really don't know. I can't even answer that question now, because the one thing I thought of, okay, let me call this person, knowing fully well that the person that I was going to call was my lifeline. I knew who to call in the moment. And so I don't know if I intended to do it, but that's the way, I was so in that place where I was so broken. I felt so ashamed. I felt so hurt. I felt like I can't get past this. There's nothing that's gonna make, in the moment, that's gonna make me feel like I can get through it. But I had a lifeline, and I think that's I always speak on that, is that you have to have a place where you feel, no matter what I say, that this person is going to receive it and they're going to love me no matter what.
Yeah.
So you have to have a person. I had a person that you have to have a like, it's like a line.
Yeah.
I knew who to call in that moment. I knew that when I know that if I pick up the phone right now and I call her, she's going to answer. Even if she can only talk for 2 seconds, she's going to want to know what's going on. Everyone needs a person. And I think that when people get to the place where they don't even feel like they have a person, like, that saddens me. Knowing what I was going through, knowing how broken I was feeling, knowing all that stuff. You know, when I watched, like, this celebrity that took his life, God rest his soul, Twitch, and I was like, he had a wife, and you don't know the relationships, but he didn't feel he had a wife, and that intimacy that men are, and I speak about this because I think men are the ones that are suffering in silence the most, because the women have their girlfriends and they feel like they could be a little bit more vulnerable, but the men are suffering because you don't want to go tell your bro that you are thinking about, committing suicide. Like, you got big muscles. You can't do that. Then you're not allowed, so I'm glad that we're talking about this, because this is something that has happened to me. And I think there's a taboo around it where people think that when you're, like, they put you in a category. I almost feel like you get shoved into a category of the people that, want to kill themselves or try to kill themselves or contemplated suicide. You get tucked into the category, and there's more, it's happening, on a wider basis and more frequently. The thoughts and the mental health stuff is happening when nobody's talking about it, because of fear of being judged and fear of, I can't be vulnerable, or fear of like, you get pushed into a category of, oh, well, that's the girl that tried, that was weak enough to even think that, I think that's why a lot of people are afraid to have the conversation and are afraid to say that they need help and are afraid to ask for support, because of society has become this place of, I have to embody this goddess, and I have to embody this perfect human, that there's no room for vulnerability. And I was having a conversation with one of my friends today, and I'm like, I'm just like, I don't know, like, part of me is like, what am I doing? Am I in the right timeline? Because honestly, I feel like I'm in the wrong place. I feel like, granted, I am grateful because I have a lot of good, I'm surrounded by a lot of good people and a lot of good women and, and men. But I really I look around and I'm like, are we healing as a society, or we're more concerned with all the other stuff?
Mm. Yeah, probably both. Probably both, right? But you hit on so many powerful, I mean, first and foremost, thank you for sharing so vulnerably, right? I think I do
I
believe.
only feel this way with you. People don't get me to
Thank you.
do this, you know.
Well, look, I don't take it lightly. I'm grateful. And, I do believe that whenever we are willing to share of ourselves in such a powerful, vulnerable way, other people are set free. And there's an
Yeah.
opportunity for others. Now, whether that conversation be here with us or it inspires a conversation, offline with whoever, I do believe that there is a ripple effect. And so I think there's tremendous power and responsibility in talking so courageously about very sensitive topics.
Yeah.
And you brought up so many good points. And, one of the things that I really believe we should spotlight and again, folks, thanks for being here. If you're just joining
Thank
in,
you guys for coming
welcome.
in.
Yeah, and use
There's
the
another
question box.
question.
Oh, good.
There's a question
Okay,
here.
cool.
I saw that, Erica, but I wanted to, this was such a hot thing for me. Like my heart just, I think my
Yeah,
heart skipped a beat.
yeah.
So we will get to it, Erica.
Yeah,
I didn't
go
miss
to
it.
Erica's question next. Hey, Baron. The thing that you spotlight that I do believe is important, and no mistakes, right? Because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and
Wow.
it's the piece. It's mental health continues. Folks will often say, "Oh, the stigma is not what it used to be." The stigma is alive and thriving.
Yeah.
There are folks who are uncomfortable because of lots of different factors: upbringing, societal, all the things, everything, culture, that has people suffering in silence because
Yeah.
it is considered a weakness if you need support. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I spotlighted recently, and I think it was in one of the segments that I shared on the reel, is this premise of, if you were experiencing anything physical by nature, unusual pattern of headaches, you would likely not have it occur too long before you reached out to a doctor to get some sort of support. But when you are experiencing emotional distress, whether that's overwhelm, distractibility, depression, anxiety, all of it, right? All of the above, most of us can say check, 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 check. Sleeplessness, everything. One day could turn to 1 year, could turn to 4 years, right? Because it's this idea of I should handle it. This is just part of the human experience. And the truth is, it is part of the human experience, but not the expectation to go through it alone.
Yeah.
And that part is something that when you spoke about mental health, it really is and men in particular, right? There's an added level of pressure because for many men, again, depending upon the way in which they were raised, who raised them, all of the things, there's an expectation to shut up, keep it pushing, you know what I mean? Man up, do your things, push it, brush it off.
It's crazy that you say that, man up. My brother says that to my nephew, and I'm like, he's 5, he's gonna be 6.
Yeah.
I never understand it, but my dad, I don't remember if my dad ever said that to him. I don't remember him saying that, but I said to him, he's a and my nephew's a gentle little soul. Yeah. But it's his way of teaching him how to be tough. And I'm not a man. I've navigated the world as a man, so I don't know how to teach a young boy how to be a man.
Yeah. But I think 2 things come from this part that I'd love to shine the light on, that I'm feeling guided to spotlight in this moment. One is that oftentimes that is the discomfort of others with emotion that will have them squash out of, people, whether it's boys, men, women, whoever. I mean, have you ever cried in the presence of a friend who basically tells you, stop, stop, stop?
I don't have those kind of friends.
Okay, I have many, and they're great people, but they're uncomfortable with emotion. So when the tears start or whatever, there's a jump to, no, don't, because something, they're uncomfortable, right? With the emotional. And I think that when it comes also to, boys, men, and all the things that can be playing a part. The other thing is, look, we can have a responsible conversation, and it's my hope that some of the fellas who are on here, if you're here, share an emoji or something so that we could see who you are. But it feels like a responsibility to spotlight the fact that there's this tremendous expectation that men do not express their emotions and air out the fact that they're struggling emotionally, mental health wise, all the things. And then let's look at like men and their lifespan. Like,
Yeah.
like how could we not think that there's a correlation with suffering in silence
Yeah. Yeah.
and the way in which it ultimately impacts?
Yeah.
There's a
And how
tremendous
they say
difference.
that, how they age too, you know, how they
Yeah.
age too is that holding on. A lot of men are definitely uncomfortable with crying.
And there's a lot of
Yeah.
women that are uncomfortable with crying too,
Yeah.
right? So there's a lot of the behavioral, like the go-to escapes, the choices to you know, look like we have it all together, not be willing to you know, let it all come out. And so as much as there's a discomfort, I think that we're sort of acknowledging the elephant in the room by way of the
But
conversation.
but I think it's a level of comfort because we just recently, you know, like my friend Tina sent me, you know, cookies and I was so overwhelmed. I was so overwhelmed because I came home to this beautiful package. I came home and my nephew was like, Titi, are you crying? He was like,
Mhm.
he had never seen me cry. He's 5.
Yeah.
And his, you know, he's like, and my niece was, and they watched me, and it's like, you know, and part of me was like, I didn't realize I'm never like really that vulnerable with them, but, and I think it might have been the first time my mom saw me. She's heard me cry before, but it's like one of those things where you're like, you have to suit up
Mm.
all the
Yeah.
time. You have to stay protected all the time. Well, I don't want to miss
The question.
Erica's question,
Sure.
but we can cut because this one's a topic that we could talk on for hours and hours
Yeah.
and hours.
Well, that usually happens when we
Um,
talking.
how do you let go of telling old stories, old things in
Mm.
your life, repeating things over and over? So how
That,
do you let go of telling the old stories,
that's a good.
the old things in your life, repeating things over and over and like she wants to that's a great
Yeah,
question.
that's a great question, and that's a loaded question too. I love that question. Thank you, Erica. I don't think it's so black and white, but I do believe that the stories we tell have tremendous meaning and power. And so I would want to have a conversation and look closer at what are the stories that continuously get told, because in that story is information, right?
Hmm.
So there's a reveal about what the story means, about the impact that it has on you, the hold it potentially has, right? The way in which it maybe changed you, affected you. So I would be curious, and not that it has to be answered in this moment, but the way I would go about looking at this is to look at, well, let's look a bit more closely at those stories, the old stories that continuously get told. Let's look at what themes, what meaning they possess,
Yeah.
how they have impacted. Um, and
She
if,
said maybe
yeah,
the things that hurt us in the past, etc.
yeah,
How so that's the reference that she's talking
yeah.
about.
So if it's incidents, life experiences where pain has occurred and hurt has taken place, I do believe that the answer lies in healing work. I think that the way in which we are able to sort of put something to rest, like, you know, metaphorically, if you will, is to be with it. We can only change what we're willing to be with. And so if,
But how long is too long to be with something? Like, because I feel we just touched on this before about you are one of those people that help, you know, in the healing community, in that support community, in that coaching community, that is more of the let's talk about the present and go forward. How do you how do you help someone reconcile that okay, you know, if someone wants to talk about it, it's something that, you know, it's pressing.
yeah,
Like I have the same things come up for me. The same few things come up for me that happened specific time in my life when I was sexually abused as a child, my traumatic experience that happened in 2017, and then in 2020. So those three things,
yeah,
they all come up at different, and in the last 3 years, they've they kind of like, it's like I'm juggling them. They come up consistently. I've learned now through, just looking within. I'm very grateful that I have Aisha in my life. you know I don't know, for those of you that don't follow her, it's __poetic __. I'm gonna also tag her. Actually, I'll share her separately because this is my time with Andrea. But had it not been for her encouraging me to look within, every time those things come up now, I'm like, okay, something's happening in my life that's bringing up that time that happened. So I have her. For people that don't have her, that understand that something on the something externally is triggering you. And I don't really like that word. I don't think it's a trigger. I think it's more of like it's surfacing because it says you have more work to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just trying to go through the emotions. Sometimes it's like, sometimes I can do it in 2 minutes, or and sometimes it's like days. I'm like, okay, what's happening? Why do I still have this feeling?
Yeah.
How do you reconcile the, because it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Like
and you're talking about, and again, I wanted to say thank you, because you're sharing in such a courageous and vulnerable way with very intimate personal details. And there's no, like, grief and healing doesn't have a timeline attached to it, right? And so I think, to your note and to something that was shared in the comments, there are some things that may repeatedly present themselves. Right now, the difference between doing the work, right? Because people say that and it's like, what does that even mean? But it's the willingness to be with life and feelings and emotions and experiences, and not have them define, but allow for what has come up by way of them occurring, right? Because you're talking about very significant events. The willingness to be with that and not allow it to hold us, like keep us hostage to shame and hold us in certain holding patterns, if you will. Who's to say when it will come up and and when it will fade? And so it's never about telling folks, like, don't talk about what has happened, right? Because that's not it. But I do believe that there comes a time when we're sharing from a place of genuine life experience. This happened, like, this changed me. I'm, because of blah, 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 and all that. From a place of sharing. And then there's times in which we're sharing from a place of something has a hold on us. It's driving our decisions. It's driving how we view ourselves. It's driving the choices we make in terms of partners or not choosing partners, right? It drives us in terms of how we operate within a family. That's the time in which it's important to do work around healing, to come up with new, and this goes directly to Erica's question, when something has hurt you, when something has happened, there's opportunity to process, be with, forgive sometimes in terms of, and again, not for the other person, for self, and be able to access new perspectives that will support you in going where you're looking to go. Because some perspectives that we hold at times will not help us go anywhere, right?
Yeah. I feel like Erica brought that question up for me.
That's where I felt, right?
Because I need that today, because I'm like,
yeah,
because I'm in a place right now where I'm like, I know where I need to go, and I'm moving towards that, like, boldly. Like, I'm all unapologetic about just wanting to, just be now, but there are a few things that still have a hold on me, that I can't, like I'm like, okay, I've healed. I feel like the last time this came up, I've handled it with courage, and and today it's like, what? Like, I feel like it's really smacking me, today. So Erica, know that, we are aligned in more ways than one. She always finds a way to come towards me when I least expected and when I needed the most. So I appreciate that. But you said something about just that I wanna talk about. You said what you've gone through in the past affects your ability to be in relationships. I know that's the case for me because, my traumatic experience happened with someone that in 2017 happened with someone that I should have felt safe with. and um, and it was a lifelong friend. And so I have this thing now where I feel like I'm not safe with selecting the people that I have in my life.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, how could I not have seen for 25 years that this is who this person is?
So a couple of things come up when I hear you say that. And again, like, I'm going to do it until the cows come home, but I want to acknowledge you, right, for sharing the way you're sharing, because it can be easy to kind of talk around points, and you're literally bringing us right to the source of your experiences.
Well, I don't want to use this. I want to use this opportunity to help people understand what happens when you're speaking with someone that's educated enough to do the work that you do, that you have to be open. They don't have to do it online like I'm doing it with you. And so I don't want to squander your time and this opportunity to show people what the benefit is of doing the work that you do and why it's important when because some people might not have a person in their life that they can go and have these conversations with, but having an Andrea that they can call on a private time where you have that confidentiality, I don't want to squander this opportunity and not allow people to see how amazing you are and what an expert you are in your field, because based on what I just said, you were able to identify the thing that I need support with. And that's what I want. That's what I want to come up from this, is for, if it means that I am not trying to bear my soul. I told you I trust you.
This is, but you don't know. I appreciate that. And I think that it's safe to say, like, this is what we do, right? There's conversation, there's an opportunity. And this is like what the V-Spot, my podcast, is about. I'm sharing my story, not to make myself the point. I'm sharing my story so that something could land for someone else to be like, oh my God, that's exactly what I went through, and not the same instances, the insight. And so I'm appreciative for you sharing and giving us examples here, because we're able to actually connect with and then draw inclusion to like self, like, oh, wait, this is what I'm going through. And so when you said that and shared that, two things occurred in my mind. First and foremost, it's like how we will often do a beat up of self of how couldn't I have seen, right? And you shared one of the most important parts that I heard was 25 years. That's the number you assigned, right? 25 years of you seeing exactly who the person was until an event takes place, right? There's no way we could sometimes see that. Yeah. And so because we go through difficult times, or in this case, you went through a traumatic experience, it could be your internal, like, your mind's eye searching for, how didn't I see? And the reality is you have 25 years of evidence that suggested that this wouldn't be the conversation, right? And the second part of it that I hear is restoring trust in self.
Yeah.
Right? That you, despite the experience that you had, and again, right, that part's not on the table for discussion in this moment, despite the incident, despite the trauma, you are capable of choosing people who are good for you. Well, yeah, because I would challenge you in this way to say, how could you possibly, with 25 years of evidence that this person is, your person, how can you go off of something shifts and then take responsibility for their action, for their change in character. So it gets tricky, because I think oftentimes we will blame self, or like beat up self for not knowing, or how come I couldn't, or why didn't I see it, and the reality is because we are not those people, and people make decisions, and people turn out to be whatever they turn out to be, right? And then we get to respond accordingly, and again, oftentimes off the heels of very painful moments. So I'm not discounting the pain, but what I hear you saying, like, I don't know about picking people. it sounds as though it's like, well, if I was able to allow that person in, how can I go out and have anybody else, and use your judgment. And that's something that, like, the restoring self trust, to me sounds like the piece.
Yeah.
That if there's any red flag, of a person's character at this point in time, do you trust yourself enough to
To
feel
see
like,
it.
yeah, to be like, wait, what's up here? Like, I don't
I
know
don't
about
know the answer to that. I just go by my energy now. I go by
it.
how I feel when I'm with the people, and I just go by my energy. I don't go by what they do. I let my energy speak for me now, and that's been serving me well. And sometimes people are like, "Well, that person is so great." I'm like, "I don't care what you say. I'm sorry. My spirit doesn't agree." And that's my boundary now,
Mm,
is that I go by my energy. Now, I can warm up to people and people can warm up to me,
yeah,
but I don't. I leave my heart open, and I'm like, just show me, speak to me energetically, and tell me who you are. That's what I ask the universe to do for me, is just let them show me who they are energetically, because I
yeah.
can't go, because everybody's all made up now. Everybody's got makeup, and
Mm,
they're wearing the flashy outfits. Like, I don't want that.
yeah,
Show me who they are naked. I want to feel their energy. And that doesn't, so far, that has worked for me. It's also something that has been kind of like, it's a little bit of my superpower, but it's also bad, because once I feel that energy, there's no turning back. Like, I can't shut that off. I don't know how to shut that off.
yeah.
How to start this, like, persona that I can't.
Mm,
I'll be cordial to people, but the energy thing is big for me. So
yeah,
I feel like that's what I use now as my tool to help me make informed decisions about whether someone is good for me or not, and whether or not I want them in my space, and sharing energy with me, because like, I think people really don't understand. A lot of people think, they're like, okay, so she stretches, but they don't understand. Like, I have to really open up to help people release.
yeah,
And so it's an intimate thing that I have to do, where Aisha's always encouraging me that I need boundaries, for that. And I don't have to save the world. I can just show up. But it requires a lot of vulnerability from me to do what I do, because people come to me for a safe space.
yeah.
They'll tell me things that they wouldn't tell the average person, because I'm just the little stretch lady that helps them open up. And it's
Yeah,
an emotional thing to the release. A lot of times people are like, "Oh, Deanna, I was crying. I
yeah,
had to turn my camera off because I was crying." I'm like, that's a natural thing to do. Um,
yeah.
but it's, I think it's can we talk about one of the things you mention a lot? You don't mention a lot. You speak about this often, and I suffer with this in some areas of my life, is procrastination. And people are like, well, it's a fear of success. I don't have a fear of success at all.
Mm,
Because I've,
yeah.
I've experienced it in my life before. Um, what conversations can you have with someone, or how can you support someone that's doing something like that, that's struggling with just execution in some parts of their life?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious to know where it's showing up in your life. Like, what types of things do you find yourself procrastinating on?
So, in my old, I know why it started. So in my old job, I had so much to do, and a lot of it, a lot of what I did last minute, and I got used to doing things last minute. So for me, it's, if it has anything to, like, my clients all know I'll show up for a stretch 3 months in a row, but like, they might get an invoice from me a month late, or 2 weeks late,
Yeah,
so that part of it. And I've decided that I just need an assistant to do that work for me.
yeah,
um, and so I have decided, for me, that is not something that's a strength. But in business, when it comes to recruiting, I have a hard time with that. Again, it goes back to that energetic thing again, where we were talking about, like, if someone's energy and mine, like, if I don't, it's all the energy. And, my coaches is like, it doesn't matter what their energy is. You're just trying to support them. You might be, missing an opportunity to help someone change their life because you don't feel energetically connected to them. So that's where I struggle with in my business is recruiting and getting, and just putting myself out there in that way, because I think it ties back to what we were talking about before with trusting people.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to me doing in-person events, all this energy is now around me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, a couple of things in there. Do you associate that is there an association with what you just shared and procrastination, or do you feel like it's somewhat separate? Because I don't want to miss, like, if you're capturing a correlation.
I think they're related.
Okay. So it's because again, it sounds like there's a unwillingness to share the work, let's say, if you feel as though spirit, like the energy is off. Is there sort of like a decision that's kind of made?
Yeah, like I
I'm
shut
done.
down.
Yeah.
I shut down.
Yeah. And so will that serve you in the growing of and the way in which you're looking to build your team, or do you feel like it's going to prohibit you from going where you're looking to go?
I mean, I speak to people about this and they're like, what does it matter what their energy is like? That shouldn't really matter. But it does.
It matters.
It
to
matters
you.
Because in business, for me, it does.
Yeah.
It matters in business for me because it's who I'm connected to. I think they say that thing, your vibe attracts your tribe. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be surrounded by people. I always say, I want people to look at the group of people around me and be like, oh, she's with that group. Like, she connects with those group of people. That's how you know the kind of human being I am. Just take a look at the people that are drawn towards me, and then group me with them. Always group me with the people that's in my tribe. That's how you know who I am. And so, but in business, should that matter?
So, I mean, I'm curious to know if is there an example you could share about what would be off, like, or what you experience when in person?
What my energy experience is?
Yeah, like, or what's the vibe that you get, or what's sort of like the inherent message?
I'm gonna tell you how I feel with your energy. With your energy, I feel calm, I feel safe, I feel peace, I feel nurturing, I feel I feel I feel that you're tender. I feel like you're protective. I feel like you would go to bat for someone to protect them. I think that that's the energy I feel from you. I feel like there's no hidden agenda. I feel open. I feel light. There's an air and a breeze about you. I feel that you're growing in who you are. But there's two different humans to who you are. There's Andrea that shows up as the woman she needs to be to support other people. But then there's a softer, tender side of you that's the Andrea that I see and I feel, and is why I'm drawn to you, why I feel open having these kinds of conversations. So that kind of like energy is how it happens with everyone.
Yeah.
Sometimes though, what happens to me is in the beginning, I can't really, because people are good at kind of like protecting who they are. And so in the beginning, I always know when I'm trying to be open, and I'll get feedback from someone. So, oh, you and so-and-so would get along great. I'm like, I tell people, stop telling me that. Don't tell me that, because energetically it's different from me how I experience people. And I have a hard time with moving past that, because I am such, who I want to embody is a very kind, gentle person. Who I want to show up as every day is someone that doesn't have to worry about whether or not someone is going to betray them. But I can't be that person because, like the world requires that you're so protective and, like you have to be this fierce force human being so that you don't, like, you're not like, I'm not prey. So
Yeah.
that's why I do this. Like, that's why I use the energy thing.
Yeah. I hear it as, I mean, first, thank you. I, appreciate everything that you shared. And, I would offer and say this, and to folks who are listening to you, that, how I show up here is because of the work I do off the call.
Yeah.
And so, that's huge when it comes to maintaining like a presence in like in this type of work. How you show up to the Zoom, how you show up to the call, how you show up to lead the room during a training is directly impacted by everything that happens. And I'm not saying right before, I'm talking about like, are you out here walking the walk, or are you showing up to the space and then having a conversation? It's felt, right? And so there's a difference. And so I say that because that's an important piece also in the work that, you do, that folks on here, and shout out to everybody who's jumping in. It's good to see some of your names popping up. How we show up in the moments of where we're on camera is impacted by how we're offline. With that being said, I hear it in terms of two things. One, with you pertaining to the trust and self, right? Where it's, yes, right, we're in, whatever, the tri-state area in the United States in 2023. Is there somewhat of a natural tendency to be sort of armored up? Sure, right?
Yeah.
But I do believe that as we deepen self-trust more and more, we don't have to walk around with armor on, right? Because what happens with armor is that, keeps people out, but it has you as the person who's in it suffering, right? And in solitude. And so armor is...
Oh, solitude is probably my, those of you that are on here that are part of my tribe, they know, they're like, people will ask me, we're going to do this, we're going here, and they'll be like, they'll do a checklist of, like, all right, we're not going to go because we're not going to do this. And I'm like, listen, I want everyone to enjoy and be and do and live their lives and not worry. Let me show up if it fits me, if it fits my energy. And I don't want to come off as sounding, it's not ego. It's coming from a place of self-preservation. Like I literally, like energetic. And this happened to me, I think, and I'm gonna share something else with you guys. I think when I was drinking, I never understood, because I know I've always felt this thing, because when I was drinking, I used to do this trick in bars where I would read people while I'm drinking, and they would be like, oh my God, or I'd read the energy in the room, and I could read someone exactly to the T who they are. I've always been able to do that.
Yeah.
But I used alcohol as a way to shut down all of that, so I didn't have to feel it. I didn't have to process how people affected me energetically. And I don't drink. If I have a drink, it's because I'm celebrating something really big for someone else, not even for me.
Yeah.
If I ever feel like I need to drink now, I know that something's not right. There's work to be done.
Yeah.
Because that used to be my space to go. Let me just take some shots of tequila and kind of like, and then the world's gonna be a better place.
Yeah.
But so I've always been able to do this thing that happens to me with this energy, and so now I'm just like, what gives, Andrea? What gives?
So I mean, one thing I would say is when I hear you talking about the business, right, and sharing out with, because it's wellness, right, by nature, the business,
Mm-hmm.
and you're talking to potential prospects of joining your team and being, you know, in this organization with you, and you get a vibe that has you be like, brakes on, I'm not feeling this person, right? So I do believe at the heart of this matter, there is a conversation around self-trust, because here's the thing. You can be, I want to spotlight the fact that, excuse me, extreme example to the side, right? I'm not talking about putting yourself in a space where you're in harm's way. I want to just make sure that everybody who's on here hears me loud and clear. I'm not suggesting you be reckless and put yourself in anybody's company that would have you in, like, not experiencing safety and in harm's way. With that being said, that doesn't sound like that's what we're talking about here. It sounds more like there's a protection of peace because you sense an energetic thing that's not necessarily kind of vibing, gelling, making you feel like this is, yeah, this is good energy that I want to be around. And I hear it as twofold. One, it's this aspect of, like, you know, everybody gets to eat. It doesn't mean they have to eat at your table, you know,
And
and
vice versa, because there's, yeah.
right. Yeah. If we're not, listen, I'm plenty of people's, not their cup of tea, right? That it's just how it goes. And so, yeah, there's this opportunity for looking at, like, everybody gets to eat, but it doesn't have to be at your table. And I think that when you are in a leadership role and you're sharing, especially, let's say, methods of wellness with folks, you're not responsible for people's energy and you're not responsible for their work. But again, who you're experiencing and the energetic vibe that you're getting is a direct result of what was done, what wasn't done before they're even in your space, right? And so I think there's a way in which we could share with people what we're up to and the work that we do, and they can experience the benefits, and we still get to preserve our peace,
And
our
ease.
sanity. Yeah, like all of it. And I do believe that that's the flexing of a muscle, you know, where it's like, you know, the more you get comfortable with boundaries, with protection of yourself in all the different ways, whatever methodologies you use, you know, sort of as practices, um, you you're bound to be in the space with people who you wouldn't necessarily pick to hang out with on Saturday evening, you know. However, can they benefit from use of all of the tools and all of the things that you have access to, and can they benefit from your leadership skills?
Okay.
You know, that's where I hear it as a practice for self around, I don't have to break bread with you, but I can empower you and share things that will change your life. And then when
Okay.
it's Saturday and the, you know, and we're like sort of offline, you're not going to necessarily find some people hanging out in the comfort of the living room, you know. And I think that that's because, think about some of your leaders who have, you know, teams that are astronomical. They're not here for all
Yeah.
the people. Then, I mean, in terms of energetic, like, let's hang out on Saturday night and talk, you know, the good talk together. But they're willing to say, you know, I could empower you, I could provide you with strategies, I could give you tools, I could show you the work. And then when I'm off duty and I'm kicking back, like, you're not necessarily somebody who's going to be in my space,
Hold
you
on
know.
a
So I
second.
think
I don't know why my phone is dying right now. At this juicy part.
I
At this
think
juicy.
it's, yeah, plug in. I think there's a duality there in terms of um, the willingness to share yourself and your work with the world, not from a place of depletion, but from a place of empowered leadership. And then you do what you need to do offline to whatever practices. People have so many different things, you know, right? Like, there's all, depending who you talk to, people sage, people use crystals, people use oils, people have meditative practices, all of the above, to
To reset.
refill. Yeah. You know, there is a protection of energy when you're talking about so many different people and this type of work. And I don't believe that it has to be exclusive to those who fit the mold, because something about them may be creating this feeling for you. It may be information that there's, some more looking that gets to be done in certain areas. Or what
I
is it
try
about?
to I try to be open though, because you know what I found too, I think people are generally like, okay, what's she about? And so that's that I could tell when they're like, okay,